Around as Climbing the Pocket Network presents Jason and the Boys talking everything Minnesota Vikings. Watch the countdown timer.
Away we go again. Lost like I'm lost on purpose. If found, please return to. Girl, don't you know I'm lost on the road? I've been here before. When I get home, girl, don't you know I'm lost on the road? I've been here before. When I get home, my vision blurry, I'm paying the cost. I'm not enough. In fact, it's even better when you're not involved. When I miss your call, I feel that I evolve. Cause at your mention, I am more dependent than a college student on their parents or an old person on their pension. Not to mention when you hit me on WhatsApp without attention. And a bad booty bitch walks in, she looks tempting. Look, my Achilles heel is when I say what I feel, you say, baby, come home. And I don't think that I will, cause all this motherfucking stress is gonna get me killed. Girl, don't you know I'm lost on the road? I've been here before. When I get home, girl, don't you know I'm lost on the road? I've been here before. When I get home,
Huddle around as Climbing the Pocket Network presents Jason and the Boys talking everything Minnesota Vikings.
No, I can't play these games. No, you can't disrespect and call me names. Sending me signals like you about to switch lanes. Well, go on, do your thing. Go on, do your thing. I mix champagne and propane, get lit. I'm trying to forget all the things that you said, all the things that we did. Girl, don't you know I'm lost on the road? I've been here before. When I get home, girl, don't you know I'm lost on the road? I've been here before. When I get home, watch the breakdown. And I get home when I get home. You just gonna act like we normal now. Good luck. Don't you try to call me with that bullshit, telling me you're sorry. You act too quick. That's somebody else's problem now. You're somebody else's problem now. Don't you try to call me with that bullshit, telling me you're sorry. You act too quick. That's somebody else's problem now. You're somebody else's problem now.
Welcome to Climbing the Pocket Network's In the Huddle, where your favorite Climbing the Pocket personalities get together and talk all things Minnesota Vikings.
Boom. We are back once again. We
Looking
almost
at
got
forehead.
the full crew. We looking at Prince's forehead, but we almost got the full crew. Once again, the kids are not cooperating. So last week it was Miles, this week it's JR, but we're here, we're talking Vikings. We're going to jump into this thing, and we're going to take a bit of a look back. We've had a bit of time to process the gut-wrenching, heartbreaking loss that was this past weekend's game. And so we're going to try to jump into it now and maybe break things down with a little less emotion, a little bit more reason, talk about the team. Okay, well, Prince maybe is not about that. But before we go too far in it, my name's Jason Brown. You can find me on Twitter at BrownJason. And my man, Miles, wide receiver 1, how you doing? How you been?
What up? I'm doing, as good as can be.
Oh, yeah. Hey, that'll work. And what up, Michael? Michael Harley King II. How you doing? Good to have you repping from Facebook. And we got the man. It is not Anthony Anderson. I know some of you might have been thinking it was Anthony Anderson, but it's not Anthony Anderson. It is the man, Yinka Yinde, the Saxy Prince. How you doing, my dude? It's been a while.
I'm
The
good. How
last
y'all
time you
doing?
were here, you were in the car. Your internet was, not really doing what the internet was supposed to be doing. But we got you at the house with good lighting. You got the earbuds in, ready to go. How you doing, my man?
I'm as good as an 0-2 football fan can be. So
Well, let's talk about it. Let's talk about it because, some might say we're the best 0-2 team in the league. Per
It's those little
FPI,
things.
FPI stats say that we still have like a 32% chance to make the playoffs, even though we're sitting at 0-2 right now. And so, Miles, I'm going to start with you on this one. Like right after the game, I know it hurt. And so we were talking about the kicker. We were second guessing Zim's decision making, game management. Were we aggressive enough? Given a bit of time and space from the game, I guess what are your general thoughts now about how things went versus the Cardinals? And just kind of going from the beginning through to the end, kind of like how the team came out, how you were feeling about them, and then like what you actually think about this Vikings team, this roster, given that they are 0-2. But they have played both the teams they played kind of tough so far.
Yeah, it was disheartening for sure. I think the Vikings came out and did kind of what I expected them to do after losing last week. They came out, hit that big shot to Osborne for the touchdown on the first drive. They went toe to toe with the Cardinals in that first half, just kind of exchanging blows back and forth, which is kind of what I expected. I expected them to open things up a little bit more than what they did against the Bengals, and they did that. They got the run game going. They got Dalvin going. They obviously got Osborne. Osborne stepping up, becoming that guy. We don't need to get into it right now, but I'm still a little bit worried about what their role is for Justin Jefferson within the offense. Just similarly to what I had issues with Diggs. It's not the fact that again, not trying to get too deep into it, but I don't think they do enough to create for him, for JJ to get him easy touches. Like, he's your best offensive playmaker. Him and Dalvin Cook are your two best offensive playmakers. Like, get the ball in their hands. And I just don't think they do enough creatively to get the ball in JJ's hands. And so I think they need to evolve that a little bit more. But that's nitpicking. We don't get too much into that because the offense did play really well on Sunday. So Justin Jefferson did have a few drops. That key drop late in the game. Whether it would have changed the outcome of the game or not, we don't know. But he still missed it. Kirk played well. I thought overall. Yeah, shut up, Ryan. It might even be my camera. It's actually not. The funniest part is it's not. It's just my camera. Anyways, what else is it? Yeah, Kirk played well.
Gabs in the building.
Is that Gab? What's up? Let's see. I thought there was some. My issue in the second half mainly was the fact that neither team wanted to win the fucking game. Like, both teams had a chance to kind of put the game away in some capacity. Like, the Cardinals went up. The Vikings had the pick six. They should have gone for two. At least in my opinion, they should have gone for two, just to know where you're at as you move forward in the rest of the half. Because they only kicked a field goal the rest of the game. So you never know what's going to happen. So for me, I'd like to know early how many points we need. Losing by one, losing by two doesn't really matter. You still lose. There was a point where the Vikings were up 2 points. They were up two most of that fourth quarter, and they had multiple chances to go down a drive and kind of put the game away and go up 2 scores, and they didn't do it. And again, I'm not trying to put everything on the offense because the offense played well. They put up points. They put up. Well, the defense got 6, but the offense put up 27 points, so, or 25 points, whatever the math is. The offense played well. That's kind of what I'm trying to say. And so, they did what they needed to do to win the football game. And then that last drive, they did everything they needed to do to win that game. And, they got to make the kick. But there's just small things. Like, a team like this, we've talked about this all offseason. In my opinion, the Vikings don't have there's no room for error. Like, this team does not have a room for error. They don't. They put that on themselves. I think the depth has gotten better and than what we even expected it to be, but it's still not that great. So some of that margin for error is not there. So when you're up 2 points late in the fourth quarter, you need to find a way to score a touchdown to get up 2 scores and put the game away. That's just something this team needs to start doing, and we haven't seen it for a while. So that's my only nitpick part of it. I think overall the offense did what they need to do to win the football game. Defensively, we gotta figure something out, Zim. I like the 3-4 mixes and going on in there, but they got to figure out a way to stop somebody. And so their issue is at the back end. I think the cornerback position is really it's struggling. So we just got to see. I think it was Aqib Talib on the broadcast said it best. Like cornerbacks take a few weeks to kind of get up to speed to get that game speed going for them, because all offseason and all preseason they're not. It's hard to get ramped up. So it takes them a few weeks. I'm hoping we see a little bit more progression from the cornerback group as we go.
All right. So Prince, I know one of the things you wanted to talk about a little bit was, Miles kind of touched on it a little bit. It was a good segue in that. So the team doesn't have much margin for error. And so with the team not having a lot of margin for error, one of the things that we really need is we need like the coaching and the decisions to really be on point in order for the team to succeed. So Prince, give me your take on how things went from a coaching perspective in your view in watching that game and maybe watching it back. Because, like Miles said, we're supposed to be, a defensive football team if you listen to our coach tell it. But our defense is terrible. The offense is going out there and they're doing their thing, which I know has got to hurt you just a little bit with Kirk Cousins out there as the number 4 ranked QB by Pro Football Focus. But, Prince, talk to me. What are you thinking about how Zim has been performing in his role as coach over these first couple of weeks of the season?
I think we talk a lot about, or even you hear coaches talk a lot about situational football. And Zim is one of those guys who he oftentimes has coached his players to, in this situation, this is how you behave. But it feels like Zim isn't doing that same thing for himself and the coaching staff. Like they're not doing situational football for them as coaches. When it's appropriate to go for 2, when it's appropriate to maybe like apply a little bit more pressure rather than sitting back and kind of more in that, not prevent, but it feels like the defense that we knew of old hasn't been there. It feels like we haven't had a defense with teeth in a very, very long time. So when I evaluate Zim, I look at him from the perspective of just like any other player, right? It just doesn't seem like in those situational aspects of the game, we find himself making questionable decisions. Now, I think it's a bad argument to have. Well, it's like, well, if we're one play away from being 2-0, or we're one field goal away, or one decision or whatever the case is. I think that doesn't take into account the compounding poor decision making that Zim keeps making over and over and over and over again. And that's what leads to the fact that, again, yes, Kirk Cousins is put in a situation where it's like, again, if you don't trust your quarterback when you should be throwing the football, you're going to be in that situation where you have to settle for a 37-yard field goal. Whereas, like, again, stats logic would just say make it easier for your kicker, rather than running the football 3 times in a row. It's those kinds of things where it's like Zim is failing in the very teachings that he's trying to give to his players. And it's like we as people have to start asking ourselves, year 8 now? When is he ever going to get better at this? Or we just have to accept he's never going to be good at this. And we have to accept that this is likely going to be an 0-4 football team to start the first quarter of the season. And it's because we're going to keep finding ourselves in these situational things where it's like the other team who's not as good as we are is beating us because they're performing better. So
at least we got the Seahawks coming in, and we can trust that Pete Carroll will make most of the same stupid decisions that Mike Zimmer will make. So like that'll even things out, and then we'll kind of see how things go from there.
Bail him out.
But that's the thing is like Russell Wilson completely cancels that out. See, because then it's like two coaches who make bad decisions. I'm like, okay, let's look at the next most important thing, and it's our quarterbacks. And, Russell Wilson every time.
I mean, okay. All right. I mean, Kirk is set up in a pretty good situation, and Kirk is balling at the moment. Like we generally think that like it takes Kirk a little while to get into things. There's all the talk of Kirktober, but Kirk is balling. Like Kirktober is happening right now. It's another game that he went out, put up great stats. Again, the stats will kind of lie because then you can say that Kirk isn't clutch, whatever. But he's, for all intents and purposes, 2 weeks in a row, driven the team to a position to win the game. And, circumstances out of his control caused that to not happen. So, Miles, I know sometimes we can be hard on Kirk Cousins around these parts, but, like, what have you seen? I mean, mostly Yinka, but I wasn't going to call anybody out their name. But, how are you feeling about what you're seeing from Kirk, the offense, and I guess maybe like just how we're using the weapons? You've already talked to like Justin Jefferson, and you've been saying this for a while. Like Adam Thielen is a baller, but he's also often given the easiest assignment for a wide receiver in the offense. He's moved around, he's off the line of scrimmage, and so he often gets a free release and kind of gets to go in and do some different things. Whereas, Justin Jefferson's role, Stephon Diggs before him, their role is one that's a bit more difficult from the perspective of playing the wide receiver position. How are you feeling about the offense overall? You mentioned KJ Osborne. Like, how are you feeling about how things are coming together and what you're seeing from even Klint Kubiak, Kirk Cousins, the whole thing, now that we've gotten, 2 games in?
I will say they've done a really good job outside of the terrible trade for Chris Herndon. They've done a really good job of kind of replicating or replacing what they were hoping to get from Irv Smith and KJ Osborne. He's stepped in and performed way better than I think anybody would have expected. We were all critics after last year, the way he performed poorly and not even be able to get on the field on offense, but let alone playing poorly on defense or on special teams, excuse me. But they've done a really good job finding a way to find that third weapon that we've been asking for. He stepped in and taken that role over that Irv Smith was hoping to do, but I think he's done a really good job there. I think this game, specifically against the Cardinals, Kubiak did a really good job of pre-snap motion and moving guys around. He didn't do that as much for week 1. I think he was just getting his feet wet. Hopefully, moving forward, we see a little bit more of that. I think the continued play action we need to see more of it. We need to see less of the first and second down runs, especially the second and long. Like that stuff, they got to cut that from the playbook or at least limit it, because in those situations, I've had people tell me they shouldn't be running in those, or they shouldn't. Why would they run play action in like 1st and 15 or 2nd and 10? Well, why would they run the ball in those situations? If they're willing to run the ball in those situations, they should be willing to run play action in those situations. So play action's a big part of what Kirk Cousins does really well. It's a good way to fool a defense, or at least make a defense hesitate. So the hope is that they can progress in that way as they move forward. We've said this since Dalvin Cook. We've said this back when Adrian Peterson was here. The Vikings, my biggest issue with what the Vikings do at the running back position is they do a lot to invest in that position. You got Dalvin Cook, their 2nd round pick. They paid him a lot of money. You went and drafted Alexander Madison in the 3rd round. Kenny Nwangwu, we know he's hurt, but they drafted him in the 4th round. Amir Abdullah's there. They got all these running backs, and they never use any of them but Dalvin Cook. And it's a 17-game season. We saw at the end of that game against the Cardinals how banged up he looked. Looked like he tweaked an ankle. He just looked like exhausted. And that dude it's week 2, and that dude looks like he's already played like 10 games this season. So the Vikings need to find a way to incorporate other parts to the offense so that they don't need to rely 90% of what they do to be successful from Dalvin Cook. That's been the biggest issue with this offense is when the run game doesn't go, the offense doesn't go. And it shouldn't work that way. They should still be able to run play action. They should still be able to have explosive passing game and still utilize Dalvin Cook efficiently. The issue is they just rely on him so heavily in some of the most in the scenarios where they shouldn't be, like the 2nd and longs, getting yourself into third and medium and 3rd and long situations. that's when you get into the 3-and-outs and those types of things. So those are some of my nitpicking issues. I think we've seen it for years, so it's nothing new. And then back to the Justin Jefferson situation, I think for me, like I said before, if you're gonna have KJ Osborne in the mix, he's played really well. You shouldn't don't like Justin Jefferson should be seeing twice as many targets as KJ Osborne, and that's not a slight against KJ Osborne. He's earned the right to be on the field and to see opportunities, but why not put JJ in some of those situations where KJ is getting the one-on-one matchups in the slot, or you're moving him around pre-snap? Like Justin Jefferson should be your Devontae Adams. He should be your Stephon Diggs. He should be your DeAndre Hopkins. You name all the top receivers in the league.
Does he look right to you, though,
be that
Miles?
guy.
Does he look right to you? Because like last year, everything seemed to come really easy, and you could see the swag, you could see the confidence, and it feels. And again, this could just be me over reading things, misinterpreting. He feels like maybe he's pressing a little bit. He doesn't seem like as at ease. He seems to be bothered. He seemed to be bothered, especially in the Arizona game, with the cornerbacks being a bit more physical with them. Like, what are you seeing? Breaking it down, obviously, you played, wide receiver. You played in college. When you're seeing him kind of, play the game, are you noticing any technical differences in terms of what he's doing out there this year versus last year? Or does it feel like maybe he's just pressing a little bit and trying to live up to some of the hype that he created for himself, kind of, busting out as a rookie?
I mean, I think there's definitely some of that like internal pressure for himself. Like he's already said it. He wants to be better than what he was last year. That's a hard bar to set for yourself. But what I see is the frustration in how he's being utilized in the offense. From the body language, you see some of the opportunity. Like you see his body language after some plays, and you just see him down. And that's where I've already seen people compare the like Stephon Diggs situation, and we're definitely not there. But where we need to be cautious about is he is your best offensive playmaker in the pass game. Like it's like Adam Thielen's a baller. Like we've talked about that. It's nothing against Adam Thielen. Justin Jefferson is just a more dynamic player than him. It's just facts. And so you should be utilizing him as best you can, and every drive should find a way to get him a touch or get him involved in some capacity, because wide receivers, they want if you get them involved early, you'll have them involved the rest of the game, or mentally involved the whole game. If you're not going to get them involved early.
I mean, Justin Jefferson had 10 targets to Adam Thielen's 7. So, maybe break it down a little bit more to help us understand, the difference in those targets. Because when you look at the box score, it looks like the Vikings are doing everything we're asking them to do.
Well, there's a couple drops, so that's on him. I mean, that's just on JJ. He doesn't have some of the same swagger, some of the same. I don't want to say confidence, because the confidence has always seemed to be there, but you can, like, to your point, Jason, he does seem to be pressing a little bit. I think it could be play calling, it could be a variety of like coverages he's seeing, it could be a variety of press coverage. I mean, he looks like Justin Jefferson from like a physical standpoint, but like you can just tell there's something mentally it's not clicking for him right now. And so that's where I say, like, find different ways to get him the ball, because I think if you can find ways to get him out of his own head and get his confidence up, or just get his overall demeanor up, I think that's just going to go a long way. But from like a technical standpoint, everything looks on point. Everything, he's getting open. I can't say it. Every route is precise or always open, but at the same time, the one thing that we saw last year that we're not seeing as much from Justin Jefferson is we're not seeing him get the same opportunities in some of those tight coverage situations. Like Kirk gave Justin a lot of opportunities last year in tight situations, and you're not seeing it as much this year so far. And that could also be Kirk not having that full trust in JJ right now. I mean, that could be part of it. Obviously, he's got it with Thielen. KJ Osborne stepping up. He's got it. He seems to have it there. So JJ dropping that pass late in the game. I mean, obviously he's your playmaker. So I think moving forward, everything will be okay. But to your point, there is something going on. I can't pinpoint it. I don't want to assume like what's going on behind the scenes, but just from what I've seen and how he's utilized, I just feel like there's more to be desired in how they could use him.
All right, Prince, I'm going to flip to the other side of the ball. And for a player at like the
It could
other
be,
end of
Eric.
the
It could be.
spectrum right now, why is Brashad Breeland playing so many snaps? Why is he on the field? What is your read on that situation? Obviously, you're not in the locker room. You don't actually know, but like Breeland has been the mark the last 2 games. Well, the only 2 games we played this year. We heard all the hype in the offseason, but teams are just picking on Brashad Breeland at this point, is what it feels like. We had some busted coverages from some other guys as well. So, like, the secondary has not lived up to the hype across the board. But Brashad Breeland, what is it? I think Chris Thompson tweeted that he's ranked like 99th of cornerbacks in the NFL right now based on his overall grade. He's playing horribly. And then you did finally see Dantzler get in the game, and he had some plays that looked like last year. So, Prince, what's your take on that situation? Why is Breeland still playing so much? Why is he still the starter? And why is Dantzler only being used as sparingly as he is?
It's a good question, Jason. I honestly wish I knew. It feels like the Breeland inclusion feels a combination of, I guess, the Vikings' investment into him for this offseason, on top of whatever is going on between the coaching staff and Cam Dantzler. It seems like there's a trust issue with Cam Dantzler, and I don't know if it's like it may be an argument between Dantzler and the coaching staff, or he maybe freelancing a little bit more so than he should. But I don't understand why we're utilizing Breeland as much as we have been. I mean, it also could just be as simple as like Breeland could just be better in what Zim is trying to get accomplished than Dantzler is. I would have to drill a little bit more into the tape, but I can honestly can't give you a good reason why Breeland is continuing it, especially as much as he's getting picked on game after game. My hope is that maybe we see why they've made this so much of an investment over the next couple of games. But my worry is that this is not going to improve the way that things are going.
Yeah, Camp. Yeah, and to your point, like Dantzler, it's clear Dantzler didn't have a good offseason. I mean, there's the injury. Maybe he got hurt doing something stupid in the offseason before spring OTAs, because they just didn't seem happy about it. And then going into camp, obviously still felt like there was some tension there or something going on, because they seemed very adamant about Breeland being that starter opposite Patrick Peterson. Like, it felt like no matter what Dantzler was going to do, that it was going to be Breeland's job to lose. And obviously Dantzler didn't. He struggled as well, but it felt like there was a little bit of a tension there. And we don't know the story, but it feels like there was something there. And and that seems to have played into Dantzler's poor offseason. So hopefully last week, I think who is it? Seth, to Seth's point, Zim saying he had a good practice, and then he showed it in the game on the few opportunities he saw when he played. And hopefully there's some room for him to have that opportunity moving forward. The one thing that we're used to seeing with Zimmer, when he has young cornerbacks, he likes to have them sprinkle in rather than trial by fire. Last year was an outlier. I don't think Zim wanted to go into last year with all rookie cornerbacks. I think that was just more of an outlier situation that they had to go through. But typically, like what we saw with Mike Hughes, Mackenzie Alexander, Trey Waynes, all those guys had veterans play in front of them, albeit better veterans than what Breeland's played like, but better veterans in general. And to let those guys learn and develop. Obviously, Breeland hasn't really played up to it. I think Dantzler's got obviously an opportunity to be a better player than Breeland does right now. But I think there's a plan in place for Dantzler. So I think hopefully this means, as you see a little bit of that progress, that you'll just continue to see it moving forward.
All right. So one of the bright spots, I guess we'll say, is that in this game, like, the Vikings defense was able to get some more pressure. Danielle Hunter looked more like himself. He was playing more aggressively, chasing plays down in the run, getting after Kyler Murray, getting some sacks. But then again, ESPN releases some of their advanced analytics that basically say that the Vikings pass rush win rate is not great, that their run blocking, their rushing rate on the defensive line also not great, pointing to the fact that like some of the success that they've had early in the season may be unsustainable. Maybe that the rate at which they're converting pressures to sacks not going to happen. And so, like, as we start to spin this thing forward and we're looking at the next matchup, because Kyler Murray, mobile quarterback, gave the team fits, but he also, young quarterback, like Miles said earlier in the show, really was doing everything he could to keep the Vikings in the game, throwing interceptions, throwing the pick six. We got another quarterback, coming up, Russell Wilson, who also has some great weapons at his disposal. And so, like Miles, as you start to think about this matchup, understanding that you probably haven't dug super deep into tape or anything like that, what are you expecting to see, and like what adjustments can the Vikings defense make coming out of that Arizona game going into this next one?
I obviously the busted coverages from the Cardinals game. I don't think we're going to see that same type of thing from against the Seahawks. That one, I think the way Murray moves compared to Russell, Murray's an overall more like dynamic runner. Russell's a really good runner. He's really good at escaping the pocket, but he's obviously not the same type of athlete as Kyler Murray. Not many people are. But we've seen Zimmer have a plan for Russell Wilson, so I think because I feel like they've played them so many times now, so I think Zimmer has a plan, and they're gonna. Russell Wilson's not as good beating you from the pocket. He likes to be able to be mobile and be able to move around and create with his legs, to create big plays. And so I think Zimmer's going to find a way to contain him in the pocket, because that's usually when they play the best against Wilson. So, but the weapons, to your point, they got Gerald Everett as a tight end that they signed, who's pretty good. He's athletic. And then you talk about DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett. Arguably, they're arguably one of the best wide receiver duos in the league. They're up there. That both those guys are really good players. DK killed us last year. He had the game-winning touchdown, and I think he had a big fourth down catch as well. And DK is that big play threat, but Tyler Lockett's been the guy for them so far this year, where he stepped up and he's been kind of taking over that as the deep threat. And I think it's because all the attention's been going to DK. So the one thing that the Vikings can't do is let one or the both guys are deep threats, and both guys can win downfield. So been able to do what, Ryan? Leave.
I'm guessing he's saying slow down Russell Wilson. Yeah, contain Russell, I think, is what Ryan.
They've contained him before, and it's not always every single drive, it's not every single play, but they've done jobs where they can contain him enough to keep themselves in the game, and that's what we've seen the last few matchups against the Seahawks. It's not always containing Russell Wilson. That's damn near impossible. It's the fact that you find the times to be able to dial up pressure at the right time, get him off his game a little bit, and make sure that you can get the defense off the field. That's more what I'm trying to say. So I think Zimmer can contain Russ at certain times of the game more than it is like an entire game. Containing Russell Wilson for an entire game that's like damn near impossible. Nobody really does it. So that's more what I mean.
And I think one of the things I want to point out,
yeah,
one of the things I want to point out is that like process versus results. Like Russell Wilson is an amazing quarterback, and you can see the process, like the strategy that the Vikings tend to bring, and we've seen it frustrate Russell Wilson in a lot of games where they do kind of slow down the pass rush. The defensive ends just go upfield and then just kind of sit and then work back in so that Russ can't break contain and really force Russ to work from inside the pocket. And we've seen that slow Russell Wilson down and make it difficult for the Seahawks to sustain drives over and over and over again. But what we've also seen is that because Russell Wilson is Russell Wilson, he hits on just enough plays over the course of the game. And we often haven't been able to match that on our side of the ball to keep up with them. But like what Miles is saying is that strategically, we've been able to slow Russ down. Like they haven't been just like rush going up and down the field on us. Russell Wilson, just Russell Wilson, and he's made plays to beat us. But he hasn't played at the same level maybe that he has against some other teams. So I get what you're saying
Right.
on that front there. And yeah, I think there's some validity to that. I'm very curious to see kind of how this plays out. So Prince, over to you.
It's our cornerback. So real quick, Jason, it's the cornerbacks like Patrick Peterson and Cam Dantzler or Breland, whoever is playing that outside cornerback, and then obviously Mackenzie Alexander. Like those guys need to play well, and so far we haven't seen enough from the cornerback position, and you need to see those guys start stepping up.
Yeah, Prince, defensively, and Miles maybe just gave you the answer, but as you're thinking about this game, because this is one of those things, even the Arizona game was one that, like, most of us thought we were going to lose going in. I thought, and I was feeling good about it for a hot second there in the first half, that like the Vikings might be able to pull the upset. I threw it into the score prediction with Flip, and then, it just went the other way, and we lost in like the most Viking way possible. This is another one of those games because we do play the Seahawks so often that like most everyone is just going to assume that we're going to get run out of the gym by the Seahawks. But the Seahawks, like they have a lot of Vikings in them in the way that they do things. And I feel like they might keep us in this game as well. So like, as you're thinking about it, what are the best chances for the Vikings to go into this game and win one at home?
And Miles did start touching on it. I think keeping Russell Wilson in the pocket is super important. I'm remembering back to 2016 when we had a little bit of success in them. Obviously the Blair Walsh missed game, but one thing that you found outside of it just being like a really cold weather game is the success about keeping Russell Wilson in the pocket. And the one time that we had, an explosive play against us was they had like a fumbled snap, and Captain Munnerlyn had that broken contain, and Russell was able to create outside of the pocket. So that's something you see him do time and time again in his career. And I think that here's the thing: is he's going to get his. He's just too good of a quarterback for him not to be able to get those plays. But I think you can limit those explosive plays. Similar to what Miles was saying, limiting the kind of busted coverages that we saw, and I think a lot of those were miscommunication. So knowing that this defense is still on, especially on that back end, is so important. But that goes back into the point that I had last week about there needs to be a leader somewhere. We just don't have that. I'm hoping that we do get it, but we just don't have it right now. So I think if the Vikings are going to be able to pull up the upset, it is definitely going to be containing Russell Wilson and limiting what he can do while the offense, can keep putting up points, and do not rely on special teams.
You're Ryan. There's not enough books to fill the bookshelf, so there's like an old Sega over there. It's just a bunch of old video game systems and like microphones and stuff back there, and like 2 rows of books. So yeah, not doing too scholarly. It was just too big to move out the room. So I'm not living like Flip over here with like leather-bound books all in the background and really expensive whiskey. One day I'll get myself to that status, but not quite yet. Miles, I guess I'll flip it back to you. Same question. As you're thinking about this, what do the Vikings need to do to pull, this upset? What do the Vikings need to do to win this game?
I mean, they're going to need to score. I think that's going to be a lot of what we see this season. I mean, this offense is going to have to score. It can't just be we score 21 points and we win the game type of offense anymore. Like that's what Zimmer used to be able to thrive off of. This offense needs to score 27 plus. That's just the way where they're at with the way their defense has been playing. So they're gonna have to score. They're not gonna contain Russ enough to not be able to score, in my opinion. So that's it. I mean, for me, that's the key. And then obviously find ways to make key stops and try to find a way to put the game away. I mean, you can't let it always come down to the last second. A last second need from a specialist or from someone else. Find a way to win the game in regulation before the end.
But what's that way? Okay, so we need to score. How would you like to see them go about scoring? Do you think this is a Dalvin game? Do you think that like Dalvin's still going to be nicked up going to this game? Like, how do you expect the Vikings maybe to attack the Seahawks?
I am curious to see Like, I wouldn't be surprised if he misses a practice or two this week just because they want him to get some rest. But it does really matter does come out down to like how he's feeling. They're always going to try to get him going. Like Dalvin is the guy that is the straw that stirs their drink for offense. Like he's their guy. So they will always use him first. He's always the guy that they try to get the jump start on the offense. So how the offense goes is by usually how he goes. So if they can get him dialed up early, I think that's obviously going to go a long way. If they can set the tone, 4 or 5 yards a clip on the ground, that's obviously going to come into play for some deep shots. The Seahawks, their defensive backfield isn't all that great. I mean, Jamal Adams is more of a linebacker than he is a DB. So can they find a way to hit a few explosive plays? I mean, the Seahawks are a team that give it up. So they got to hit some explosive plays. And that they do. Like, it's got to be kind of like what we saw from the Cardinals game. Like, they need a combination of the run game and the pass game to both click, because when the run game doesn't click, they don't seem to click the same way on offense. So you need to see it from both.
Ryan will be there making a bunch of noise. So, Prince, you and Miles have both told me how you think it could go down, how the Vikings can get this victory. So we're going to bring this thing home. And actually, before we bring it home, I'm going to, because I see that, we do have a question here in the chat. Prince, do you think this is the game that we see Darrisaw and or Anthony Barr?
I think we don't see either of them. I think what Anthony Barr is dealing with is a lot more serious. I honestly don't see him. We probably won't see Anthony Barr till game 5 or 6. And Darrisaw, I'd probably say close to the same, because it seems like they're dealing with much more serious issues that if you rush them back, they'd be done for the season. So I don't think that we're going to see them at all this game.
Okay. Definitive from the Prince. Okay. Now, what is your score prediction? And instead of a bold prediction, who's the player from the Vikings that we will be talking about after this game that isn't one of our stars?
Score prediction, I'm going to give 37-30 Seahawks. And the player that I think is that we is going to be really important, I'm going to say Xavier Woods.
Okay.
Yeah, that was going to be mine too.
All right, Miles. What's your score prediction? And what is your new player that we're going to be talking about after this game?
I think 34-28. I want to say Vikings. I'm going to go Vikings just because. It just feels like one of those times. Like the Vikings are going to win. They shouldn't, but they're going to. So, hey, screw it. I'm going to go for it. Let's go. Vikings 34-28. I think the player will – I mean, I don't think he's like that good, but like Nick Vigil has flashed quite a bit the first 2 weeks. So I'm gonna go Nick Vigil. I'm not saying he's like a star on the rise type of guy, but like he's flashed. So I think there's something there with him that he's done a good job replacing Anthony Barr the first 2 weeks. So I think we'll see a little bit more from him.
Is Nick Vigil the new Audie Cole? Should we trade Anthony Barr with the emergence of Nick Vigil? Will Miles take back his take from the offseason that the Vikings spend too much investment on linebackers now that Nick Vigil has emerged into a bona fide super? I can't even finish that one. I'm done. Viewers, thanks for coming through. Thanks for hanging with us. Prince, Miles, as always, thanks for coming and chopping it up. Listeners, if you're here at a later point in time, come through live. We're here every night. It's good times. It's fun for everybody. Head on over to YouTube, like, subscribe, ring the bell, or head on over to the Daily Norseman Facebook page. And we will be here again tomorrow with Vikings Happy Hour, back on Thursday with Vikings Hot Takes, and then back again on Saturday with two old bloggers. Dave, play the music? Or do you have some announcements to make? Which one are we going with right now?
Going with the music. And of course,
hit the music.
SKOL, everyone. Thanks for watching. Like, subscribe, and ring the bell. And if you're listening on your favorite aggregator, make sure you rate us. And always feel free to join the conversation here at Climbing the Pocket. SKOL, everybody.